The Lifestylist, episode 168, featuring Darin Olien.
I'm Luke Story, a former celebrity fashion stylist and founder of School of Style. For the past 20 years, I've been relentlessly dedicated to my deepest passion, designing the ultimate lifestyle based on the most powerful principles of health and spirituality. The Lifestylist Podcast is a show dedicated to sharing my discoveries and the experts behind them with you. I'd like to tell you about today's sponsor, Tonic Wellness Boutique up on Beverly, just a few short blocks from my house. Now, you know I've been living in LA for 30 years, so if you're going to ask anyone on where the hot spots are when it comes to health and wellness, beauty, biohacking, I might just be the guy. So you can go to tonicboutique.com and learn all about the services they offer. They're located in the middle of LA, smack dab in the middle between Beverly Center and the Grove. And they offer a combination of hot and cold therapies. So you can go in there and do your infrared clear light saunas. You can do full body cryo or something that's really cool, which is the localized cryo. You can do a 10-minute treatment that boosts production of collagen and blood circulation. This is clinically proven to reduce wrinkles and encourages skin cell rejuvenation. So adding a healthy glow. So not just like a biohacking, like get ripped, feel good, but the Tonic Boutique is really also about looking good. So that's why they're so popular with the models and actresses. You know what I'm saying? Los Angeles is not only about feeling good and being into health and wellness, but it's about looking good. And listen, man, you know, I'm not ashamed to say I don't mind going in there and getting a little cryo. I really like the localized cryo, not just for beauty on the face and neck and all of that stuff, but if you've got an injury, like if you have a bum knee or a neck, I always get it done on my lower back. So my routine there is like I'll do a full body cryo, I'll do some localized cryo, and then I'll get in one of their beautiful clear light saunas and sweat it out, do the whole hot and cold thing. It's just fantastic. So do yourself a favor, for real. Head over to Tonic Wellness Boutique on Beverly. You can find them at tonicwellnessboutique.com. Really cool people. They're going to be happy to hear that you found them through the Lifestylist Podcast and probably give you a little extra special treatment. So check them out ASAP. A huge part of my health strategy is taking medicinal herbs and medicinal mushrooms. And one of my favorite ways to take them is by making herbal elixirs. That's really tasty, hot and cold drinks. It's much cooler to take them that way than taking a bunch of pills. Like, who can remember to do that? Well, I want to let you know about my friends from Four Sigmatic. These guys make the most potent, high quality, and delicious herbal blends that are really easy to take. You can make a cold or hot herbal elixir drink. Like what I like to do is either add them to my bulletproof coffee, or if I don't want to have caffeine, I'll just make myself a Four Sigmatic herbal elixir with something like cordyceps, lion's mane, chaga mushrooms, reishi mushrooms, ashwagandha, all the good stuff, all the stuff that you can really feel working is available at Four Sigmatic. So what I'd like you to do is go to foursigmatic.com and check it out. They have an amazing suite of products. And like anything that I promote, this is stuff that I use every day myself. I love this stuff. I'm super addicted to it, which is why I want to tell you about it. So go to foursigmatic.com. But even better, when you're there, enter the code THELIFESTYLIST at checkout and save 15% off your order, which is pretty sweet. So enter The Lifestylist and save 15% at foursigmatic.com. The sound that's vibrating your eardrums right about now is the voice of yours truly. I'm Luke Story, host of the Lifestylist Podcast, and we are here today, once again, to enhance your lifestyle with the greatest discoveries in the world. So we're up to episode 168 here on this 15th day of October 2018, at least as I sit and record this. The episode, of course, will come out tomorrow on the 16th. But here I am, creeping up on 200. And I've got a goal this year, and I thought if you're a regular listener to the show, or even if you're new to the show and you like this episode or any of the others that you discover, that you could share it with a friend, because I am setting the goal to get to 2 million downloads by the end of the year. So I've got a couple months right now, which is totally doable, by the way, and I think I can do it with your help, Right now I'm at 1.8 million. So we're close, but I really want to push that line and get it even further than that. So what you can do to help, if you're so kind and so willing, is just to screen grab this, post it on your Instagram stories or Facebook, or click on the bottom right of your player right now as I'm talking and click share, copy that link, text it to a friend or two, email it to a friend or two that might enjoy the topics that we cover on this show. It'd be a huge help to help me hit that goal of 2 million downloads, which sounds like a lot, but in the world of, the top podcasters in the world that are getting a couple million a month, it's not a lot to ask for. I'm very grateful for what I've achieved in 2 years, but I really want to ramp this thing up because I'm enjoying the process of creating this podcast. And I just got back from this event called Mercado Sagrado in Malibu, where happens to be very close to where I recorded this episode with our guest Darin Olien. And just an amazing, amazing weekend. And I met so many listeners of the show who, came up to me and just eye to eye, looked to my eye and said, dude, I've learned so much. The things you're doing on your podcast are benefiting my life so much. And that makes all of the hard work that goes into creating, high quality, hopefully podcast worth it. And so, it's just amazing to be able to have an impact on people's lives. And I want to continue to do that and ramp that up. So please help me share the show if you're so willing. So our guest, Darin Olien, is an exotic superfoods expert. He's a supplement formulator and environmental activist who travels the planet, I'm talking everywhere, to discover new and underutilized medicinal plants. He's also the founder of Superlife and the author of Superlife, The 5 Forces That Will Make You Healthy, Fit, and Eternally Awesome. And Darin is he's one of these guys. I mean, he's a huge hulk of a dude, but just one of these gentle giants, very conscious, kind, amazing guy. But he's also a force to be reckoned with. And his adventures around the world are just insane. And so I was really excited to sit down with him at his hunting lodge out in the remote hills of Malibu and really capture the essence of who he is and what he does and what his mission is. So this is going to be a great one. You definitely want to listen through to the end. Before I jump into the details of the interview, I'd like to invite you to a couple events. Let's party. I've got WITMA Live in New York City on October 25th. Then I've got a special workshop I'm presenting at Rama Institute in New York City on October 27th. And then I'll be back in LA in December to do a presentation at Neil Strauss's Biohacking Intensive for the Society. That's December 14th and 16th. So I've got a couple cool things coming up. And I'd also like to invite you to follow me on Instagram. I've been having a really good time getting to know people, virtually at least, that listen to the show on Instagram. I do a lot of posting on there. I think of educational and entertaining things on my stories, and I run a lot of Instagram lives. You might not know this, but not only do I post, I would say 98% of these podcasts in a video format on my YouTube channel. By the way, a lot of people don't realize that. You can actually watch these. But I'd say 100% of the time, I also live stream the behind the scenes of each and every interview in my Facebook group, the Lifestylist Podcast Facebook group, and also on Instagram. So if you're someone that knows there's an exciting guest coming up, or you just want to see what the process looks like behind the scenes, in all its unedited, sloppy glory before you guys hear the finished product here, please follow me on Instagram. And my Instagram is @LukeStory. However, if you want some questions answered, that would be done in the Facebook group, which is the Lifestylist Podcast Facebook group. It's a private group. You can request to join, and you can ask me and all the other, I think, 3,000 members at this point, questions that are specific. A lot of people will DM me questions. Someone today, I just got a message saying, hey, I listened to you and Shaman Durek. You talked about reincarnation. I'd love to know more about your theories on that and how it relates to Christianity, because I'm Christian and that doesn't really fit into my paradigm, but I would like it to. I can't really answer that in a direct message on Instagram. And then also there's the issue that only that one person is going to get the benefit of that conversation. In the Facebook group, I might chime in, some of the other members chime in, and we really support each other and answer questions. So if you just want to have fun and screw around, we'll do that on Instagram. If you want more personal interaction, that's going to happen in the Facebook group. So there you go. You can also join my newsletter by texting the word, one word, all lowercase, Lifestylist, Text the word lifestylist to 44222 on any United States-based phone, and you will be added to my newsletter. And from that, you will get invites to events. You will get the show notes from each and every podcast. So text the word lifestylist to 44222. If you're out of the US, you can just go to lukestory.com/lifestylist. Okay, so here's what we talk about in the episode: how Darin's body called him to use plants as medicine, the injury that changed the course of Darin's life, what's wrong with the commercial wellness industry, why all superfoods and supplements available in stores are not created equal, and some of the dirty little secrets of that side of the industry, discovering and resurrecting the use of ancient superfoods, helping people and areas around the world become more sustainable through environmental activism, Darin's most exciting ethnobotanist adventures in places like Bhutan, Brazil, and Peru, why moringa is one of the most powerful, all-inclusive plants on the planet, and why most moringa on the market is whack, how creating a sustainable economic engine can help provide higher quality superfoods and support indigenous people, the downside of regulatory certifications such as organic, etc., creating more transparency in the supply chain of our food supply, the scariest thing that's ever happened to Darin on his superfood hunting excursions around the world, the philosophical realizations Darin has been gifted by the people he's met in his travels, and then how Darin is bringing his unique nuts called barukas to the West. And if you want to try them out, which I'm guessing by the end of the interview, you're going to want to, Darin hooked up a little discount for us. So you can go to barukas.com/Luke. That's BARUKAS.com/Luke. And if you enter the code Luke at checkout, you'll save 15%. So you're going to learn in this episode what baruka nuts are and why I'm freaking obsessed with them as someone who doesn't really eat peanuts, although I would love to be able to. So that's what we get down with in this here episode with my guest, Darin Olien. And it brings me great pleasure to share this gentleman and his message with you. So here we are, Darin. We're at your place. Haven't seen you since we shared a swim in Barton Springs in Austin, Texas. Right. We almost recorded at Paleo FX, but you were running your booth. I was running my mouth around the property, recording all kinds of stuff. So I'm really glad that that didn't happen, because now we're in this amazing old hunting lodge that you use as a home in the middle of the Santa Monica Mountains. It's just a fantastic room.
Yeah.
So those of our listeners that are also watchers looking at YouTube, they can see a little bit of this epic fireplace behind us. I wish you guys could see more. We'd have to have a film crew to do that. Those of you listening, just imagine, it's like a movie set for, I'm trying to think of
like Westworld or something.
Yeah, it really is. It's got this really old-timey vibe. 20-foot ceilings, exposed wood everywhere. The second I walked in here, there was just this stillness.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a little bit of a Wi-Fi signal going. I mean, cell phones barely work. I mean, we're in the middle of a canyon here. So how did this property come about, just to start with?
Yeah, so I was actively looking for the last 10 years, really. And I was in and out of some escrows, like, it's okay, and it doesn't quite feel right. And so then I started looking at land and like, okay, maybe build, and then you have coastal commission, you have all of this stuff. And so then I put my parameters on Zillow, but I had been moving my financials around, so I was active, like banks had the information. And so when I saw this pop up, I didn't think it was real. So I had my realtors going, X amount of dollars, 50 acres, 7 minutes from PCH, in Malibu. Like, what? How is this place have a home, 50 acres, and this close to Malibu and the 101? And I don't get it. So we showed up. Day 2 on the market. We ran around the property. I was kind of waiting for like the big reason. Why?
Yeah, they're like, there's mold.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. And it come to find out that a trust had this property since the early 90s, and really no one's ever lived in it. And before that, people sporadically lived in it. So no one's really lived in this property kind of since it was bought or created. And so I told you earlier, like we did the thing, we went around, we looked at everything, and I just finally put my hand on the ground outside, and I just felt this kind of instant connection to it, and this knowing. And so I just said to myself, I'm going to do everything I can in this physical reality to get it, because I feel this. It's got to be something a lot greater than me to kick me out of this thing. So I put in an offer, got it locked up, and then in escrow, and then this line of people showed up after with cash and way over price and wanted to buy it. But I had snapped it up and spent a lot of time with the inspectors and everything. And long story short, I got it 2 years ago. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And the thing that comes to mind for me when I'm out in a house like this, and I grew up in the woods, in the country, you know, but when I get out here, I swear, I think I have PTSD from watching Friday the 13th and shit when I was a kid. I picture myself in here alone. I would be walking around with a firearm on me inside the house at night. I would be so fucking scared, you know? You have a huge dog, your dog Chaga, big German Shepherd. There's some security in that, maybe. But do you ever get spooked out here if you're by yourself at all?
Well, it's definitely active, right? The house makes noises. It's old. It creaks. There's definitely a wildlife activation, you know. So mountain lions, running into and seeing a mountain lion is almost as infrequent as seeing a big size shark in the ocean. And in 2 years, I've ran into the mountain lion 3 times: a female, a cub, and a big male. And so I realized very quickly, and huge owls, bobcats, deer, like, I'm in it. This isn't mine. Like, I'm a part of this thing. And so I just kind of respectfully put that vibe out. I am nowhere. I'm not here to dominate more than occupy this space like you, in terms of the animal vibe that I put out. So, you know, so far so good. But, you know, I walk with awareness. The chaga stays close. I have a machete, and that's morning walks and evening walks all the time. So, you know, and I listen, and you start picking up on the birds making different sounds and calling different things. And so I'm starting to get the rhythm of the property. And so I can tell, you know, the difference between the birds calling because we showed up and calling because something else is around. And so even my kind of spidey sense goes up. And of course, Chaga's goes up, and you can kind of pick that up and respect what's going on and kind of get out of the area or whatever. And I too grew up with the Friday the 13th and Children of the Corn and all that stuff.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
Oh, that one
horrifying.
Scarred me.
Yeah, horrifying.
But that being said, the gift of what this property is just far surpasses any of that old stuff. It's just something that I realized that nature and this place just charges my battery so much, and it helps me fuel for the things and the commitments that I'm doing on this planet. And it's a really great kind of synergy. So
yeah, it's awesome. Well, thanks for having me, and I'm glad we got to do it here.
Yeah.
Because have you done podcasts out here before?
I've had some.
God damn it. I'm not the first. I hate it when they say that.
definitely the first here.
That's cool, man. Okay, so let's go back into your past a little bit. We're going to be focusing today on all things superfood hunting, your travels, your discoveries, your most recent discovery. I'm definitely going to get into because I'm freaking addicted to it. Want to share that with people. But how did you first get into, using plants as medicine and paying attention to your diet and, what eventually led you into being an expert in this field?
Yeah, well, it was, again, that being born early, super early, 3.5 pounds, and that moment that my father told me later was when he literally saw this little being choose to live. And it was a difference between, I don't know if he's going to make it, to he turned the corner. And then at 13, doing my first cleanse, grapefruit cleanse that I saw in the Minneapolis Star and Tribune, Go figure. I'm a small town kid from Minnesota. But something in me chose to do that. And I think for 3 days I ate nothing but grapefruits. And it was the first time that cognitively and consciously I felt something from what I was doing by eating, instead of drinking 5 to 6 bottles of Coke a day, like medicating myself through attention deficit, medicating myself through a resting heart rate of 120 beats per minute. Like I was a little tweaked until my body
as a result of being premature.
Yeah.
Wow.
It sent me off on some, they were like, oh, he's having a hard time at school, a patch on his eyes. Like, why is he falling asleep? Like, then his heart rate's like 120, but he's waking up. Like, we don't like it was a little tricky.
It's hard to imagine that, because now, and those of the listeners that are watching again on YouTube or on one of the live feeds, like, you're a beast of a dude. You're the definition of a mesomorph, just fucking ripped, strong, tan, good looking, healthy guy. So whatever you have figured out in your life that we're going to get to the bottom of has worked. Because I'd never look at that guy and go, "Ah, poor guy. Yeah, he's probably born 3.5 pounds, premature, didn't have a shot," Yeah.
But here's the thing. Here's the drive, and it helped my father. So my father passed away in 2005. 30 years sober. I've said this before. Like this mark on my chin was from an event that happened when I was 4 with my dad. And that event got him to get sober the first time. And then he was sober, but he was really fucking pissed off.
Is that when he knocked you into a bunch of beer bottles?
That's right. Did I tell you that story?
I know stuff.
God damn.
I do my research.
Yeah. So I was a bowling pin, or I was the ball and the beer bottles were the pin. Other events happened too, and he got sober. So the point is that before he passed away, maybe a year before that, he made the link for me, because at 13, I did the cleanse. At 16, I picked up my first dumbbell. And when my dad said, "I saw you throughout your life, the moment you decided to live, the times in your life where you're struggling at sport and your body wasn't quite there and things." So he'd see all of a sudden this click in me that would just turn into working hard. And there was a point where I just kept making choices. And so by my father telling me that thing, I realized, and I could finally own this kind of blue collar side of myself, that, oh, that's it. I had a signaling at the very beginning that told me this body is really fragile. It may or may not work well. Good luck. And you're weak. And so fragile and weak, that was my impetus of starting life. And so every time where I perceived myself weak, I made that shift and go, okay, I'm going to do something about it. Okay, next, I'm going to do something about it. Okay, next, I'm going to do something about it. Like something opened up another door for me to see a possibility. So 13 cleanse, 16 picked up my first dumbbell, started working out, got taken under the wing by my dad was an agricultural professor at the University of Minnesota. So I come from my family, my extended family, they're farmers, they're ranchers still to this day, South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota. Like my grandmother came over on a covered wagon and fed Indians, and she told us that story before she died. Like so that whole culture was in me, and so to work hard was in my blood. Like to work hard, and so when I started building my body, I was like, okay, food, working out, and all of a sudden I went from 5'9", 135 pounds at 16 to 190 pounds at 6 foot as a senior in 2 years. And it just all of a sudden everything clicked. And then I realized it integrated itself into, a choice followed by action. And then I started playing football a lot, and I went to college, started as a running back my sophomore year, and then boom, first game, crack my back. I didn't break my back, I tore a bunch of ligaments. So again, now I'm like, okay, there's something I just achieved. I'm going to keep going. No, you're not. That moment was, I love all this stuff. Why don't you study that what you need? Because I couldn't get better to play again. So I started studying physiology, nutrition, kinesiology, all that stuff. And that's what I got my undergrad in. And then I realized this is an unbelievable situation. Like this is a miracle that we have this body, and kind of coming from the information of 13 and 16 and the struggles and like the realization of choice. I'm like, oh, so what we put in our body is definitely going to affect us. What we do with our body or not is definitely going to affect us. And so then with that information in undergrad, I moved to Boulder, Colorado. I started playing went back to school, some rehabilitation classes, and then started doing nutritional counseling, started working with a doctor that would go to the medical school and bring back stacks of information. There was no internet really at the time. So we lived in that era before there was internet.
Yeah, and the internet was called the library.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the first guy telling me like, nutrition is the answer. That's the key. And I kind of didn't fully grok that until later, but knew that it was a fascination. Then I started playing with foods, and I started playing with supplements. And then I started looking at why certain companies or certain people were formulating weird things into them. And then when my father passed away of alcoholism, finding that again.
So he relapsed?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I have a half brother, sister. They were born. They were 3 years old at the time. And that was it. He was in and out of rehab, couldn't get it together. And this was a brilliant, smart, wonderful human being, but struggled, right? So that moment when he passed, there was something that just jumped in. So whatever boy was left kind of playing around with stuff and looking around, it was like, no, it's time. You've seen some things that people hadn't seen. You'd been to places people haven't been. It's time to actually bring that in the world, because at least you know a little bit that could help some people. So the idea of superfood hunting, I mean, that was just necessity, number one. And number two, I was seeing ways people were doing it that wasn't that good. And the quality of what that was supposed to be was lacking. So the power that plant would have, or the constituents that it was supposed to have, or the properties that it could have, wasn't, and therefore couldn't be expressed in a way. And ultimately then you would consume it and not get the benefits of having a strong body. So my whole deal is, because I had a weak start and I built myself into a strong place so that I could live a super life. And that's really where the title of my book and all that stuff, because it really isn't about a title of a book. It was really about the core of what I want. I want to be able to run around on this property, and if a tree falls down, I got to take the chainsaw and pull things out and work. And I used to have a property with this horse on it. He'd fall down. He was old. I'd put ropes on him and help him and put my shoulder in and get him up. And like, the point for me is I want to be able to not be limited by the inability for the body to function, the mind to function, the spirit to be there. For me, I don't want to, because we all know what happens when our bodies are suppressed and depressed and sad, or certainly sad in the mind and not able to function at its highest level. Then it's hard to dream. It's hard to take action on the dream.
Yeah, you get stuck in survival mode.
For sure.
You know, you're just like, how the fuck can I get up today?
Yeah.
And like just function as a normal person, let alone being optimal.
Totally.
Something I'm curious about, and I think I think our buddy Matthew Burgess first introduced us at a dinner with Neil Strauss and a bunch of the Malibu crew.
Yeah.
And that's where I
I
first...
think Taro was there too.
Yeah. And that's where I found out about Super Life, your book, your site. And I remember, first thing I remember was like, damn, how did he get that URL? That's amazing. That's an amazing name.
I know.
I was like, shit, good move.
Yeah.
But then found out that you had formulated for a long time for Beachbody.
Yeah.
Which is really mainstream, fitness brand worldwide, really successful company. And it was really funny. I don't know if you remember this, but when in my former life as a fashion stylist, they were one of my clients.
That's right.
I used to style some of their workout videos and also the Tony Horton P90X videos and all kinds of stuff like that. And it was, my stylist friends would laugh at me because it wasn't a really cool celebrity or supermodels or something like that, but it paid really good money and it was so freaking easy.
Yeah.
You went to Sport Chalet, Lululemon, all the sporting places and just put people in non-heinously matched colors basically and Greek out the logos. And that was your day's work. I mean, it was like one of the most stress-free jobs, but it was
consistent.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. And it was, just, short days. Everyone was very professional, but it's just one of those weird things I fell into. So how did you end up in the Beachbody world?
It's funny because I was heading down that path. I had started a company all based in finding and bringing out these plants. And I had a few that I identified and some that I helped to resurrect in South America and Peru. Because they were kind of being lost. So I was like, I have to work on these things. Yacon, Sasha Inchi, which is like an Incan gold, omega-3, 6, and 9 oil. Yacon is like this interesting prebiotic syrup that is very low on a caloric sugar, but it's it's almost like it's tricking your body because it's a prebiotic coming in, but you get all the taste. So I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And they used to kind of lug it around as a canteen to having the minerals and the healthy digestive things. And then they'd walk for days and have these big kind of looking like sweet potatoes in a certain sense. So, and then of course, maca way back in the day. So I met all these farmers and of course a ton of medicinal plants. And so I had decided, and then I had little formulas in my head that I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make a little bar because the bars suck. And so I was going down that path. I had hired a couple people and then serendipity stepped in. So one of the guys that I had kind of snapped from the vitamin barn in Malibu, he was this indigenous Native American Mexican that had some naturopathic heritage and also studied. Incredible guy, Miguel Berumen, works for me to this day. That was 2005. And so I'm like, I'm going to bring this shit to the world. Let's help. Let's work directly with indigenous people. Let's bring out these plants. Let's do it right. We know what's going wrong in the industry. It's not brokerage companies that are going to save these plants. It's doing it right directly, blah, blah, blah. He was like, I'm in. So I had been doing that. I had put formulas together and I was doing that, burning through all my money, right? And so then serendipity stepped in. He met Isabel, who was Carl Deichler, the owner of Beachbody's girlfriend at the time, and she was a great formulator too. And she had come to the vitamin bar, met Miguel, and said, hey, I'm working on this potential project with Carl, but I need help. And so I'm doing some of this stuff. And Miguel was like, oh my God, you got to meet Darin. Darin's into all, he's doing all this stuff. Like he's in Peru, he's connected. He's like, and so we met and it was like a kindred spirit. So Isabel and I are just like, boom, like philosophies and doing it right. And then we got the marching order from Carl going, I'm not going to compromise. So you just make it how you need to make it at the time. And, you know, there was vegan powders and stuff like that weren't even close to being marketable yet. And the safety taste-wise. And
I remember that.
Yeah, it was horrible. Yeah. And even safety standards just weren't even up to speed. Right. So there's a lot of things against it. So anyway, we threw this formula together in 2000 and launched in 2008, 2009. And it became, you know, their biggest grossing product at the company. So, you know, as an independent formulator, that's kind of like a beautiful
that's a win.
Strike of gold.
Yeah.
And so it's afforded me to continue to do what I do and continue to investigate, continue to travel, continue to work angles. And in the process of hunting and superfoods, and you've relatively find yourself in situations and unsustainable situations and uncleanly water situations. So I've gotten involved with, I'm on the board of raincatcher.org, where we've gotten 500,000 people clean water around the world. And then I run into guys who have dedicated their life to sustainable technologies and permaculturists that are carbohydrate economies into fuel economies for indigenous people. So these worlds start kind of coming together in such a powerful way. So then it fuels my mission even more. So, and then of course, the anomalies of which we'll get into later, the barukas from the Sahadu, those things come very rare, because I have a list of botanicals that I'd love to get out in the world, but there's a lot of things that have to come together for those things to work. And so when the stars align in terms of, is it sustainable? Is it grown in a way that's sustainable? Is it farmed, or is it wild collected? Is it how much of the indigenous people have to be involved? And if they are, how do you do it fairly? So it takes a huge amount of work to understand a culture and interview everyone possible. And when I say interview, I mean like sitting around and talking to a chief and going to the head of a village and in a car for 15 hours on a water buffalo, on a train, on a plane, it's not like it's great to stay as an opening line. Hey, I'm a superfood hunter, but it's a freaking, you got to be in shape, man. It's
it looks hardcore when you look. I was looking, of course, at the videos and stuff on your site, and it looks like Crocodile Dundee stuff. I mean, you were out like bushwhacking for real. It's not, it's not you're going to a city center in Brazil and meeting with an executive and like discussing those people that live out in the bush and how we can extrapolate their shit. It's but like you're there with the people.
Yeah. And you have to. But that is very much a part of the industry now.
Right.
That part of it.
So it's both.
It's both now because you have to, where is that said plant going to go to get harvested in a standard that's going to be viable for, you can call it FDA. Of course, it has to hit all those standards and HACCP certified and all of those things and standard protocols of quality assurance and quality control, heavy metals and microbiological and standard safety processes and flows states of how a plant is taken care of. And then then looking at it deeper, like what are the active compounds? How do I grow them in a way that's protective of them? How do I then harvest them? And I say how we do, like them, and how can we work with them, and what do they need in order for that to occur? And then how do we preserve that in a way that ends up in a liquid or a powder or a functional beverage to still have the mission? And that mission is to bring about the opportunity of that constituent that has been used sometimes tens of thousands of years, so that you can sit here and consume it and actually get the benefit. Not not from a marketing perspective. Because marketing perspective, I've seen shit. I know a lot of the people behind the scenes. Most of what I've done, I know who's making what, and where that's coming from, and who that lab and that thing, and like, it's just a matter of time. Someone's gonna get in trouble doing that because all the facilities don't have this in place or that in place, and birds are pooping in the thing. It's just
I'm thinking about all the superfoods in my cabinet right now. Well, so the way my mind works, I'm really into the way things work.
Yeah.
Those TV shows, how it works or how things are made, whatever. I don't have TV, but I've seen those types of shows a couple of times, and I'm very interested in this supply chain of things. So if you look at Peruvian maca, from the moment that it's planted, the seeds planted in the ground, what's it fertilized with? Where does the water come from?
Yeah.
Who's picking it? Where does it go right out of the ground? Does mold grow on it?
Yeah.
And then if it's, powdered or gelatinized, is there, what's happening? Every little step of the way is interesting to me because I'm interested in getting the actual compounds that make it effective in there.
Macamides and the macamines and the things that have the reason they were taking it.
Right. And I guess that's the thing when you're looking at, just superfoods as a whole typically don't come from this country of origin. When you're speaking as Americans, they come from all over India, South America, of course, and numerous other places. So I'm always wondering when I go into an Erewhon or a Whole Foods and I'm like, oh, here's the moringa. Yeah, that's good for you. And I'm getting, a bag of that. I can't help but wonder, is it the legit stuff? Is it the shit or is it whack? And there are some things that I've researched a bit and I know, and I'll email companies and grill them about their process and the origin of the things and how it's tested and all that. But, you don't have time to do that with every single thing. So I try to find the top ones, but there's just some of the supply chains are so ambiguous that it's difficult to really trace down to origin to see if you're getting the real deal.
I don't even have a good answer for you other than
I don't know that it's a question. It's just, it's a point of interest for me just because I like seeing behind the curtain and I'm just so curious as the way it works.
Well, most of my career has been behind the curtain, which is the number one reason I still jump on a plane and show up, because I've seen most situations. What 99% of
what are some really crappy things that could go wrong in the supply chain?
You want me to?
Yeah, obviously you're not going to name names or whatever. Feel free to if you want, but what are some of the things that people might not know are going on in that?
Okay, so there's some easy ones. Moringa, since you brought it up, moringa is one of the most powerful, all-inclusive plants. Period. If I was on an island and I had one plant to consume, it would probably be moringa to survive. Because it's, in Africa, they call it the vitamin tree. They say it's a never die tree. I eat it and I never die. Or it never dies too. So it's very, very strong tree.
So it's a tree.
It's a tree.
So the moringa are leaves of an actual tree.
Leaves of an actual tree. Easy to grow in those kind of close to the equator types of places. India, Africa, Cambodia, Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines. Great places to grow. Western Africa was reported some of the great soil constitutions, some of the great moringa. I've spent a decade in Western Africa working directly with moringa and the populations. So I know moringa in 6 or 7 different countries. And I know exactly why there isn't good moringa on the market. There's some better. There's not great. If anyone's listening to this and they think that they have a great moringa, I'd love to know about it.
So funny because I just ordered some Thrive Market, and I love Thrive Market, but I just ordered some Thrive generic moringa powder. I'm already going, shit, there goes $20.
Well, here's the thing. You're going to get something.
Right.
But my mission is to get as much as possible. Can you grow it? It's not so easy to grow in California because it gets actually too cold. You can grow it in Florida though. Okay, so you can have a moringa tree in your backyard, pull up the leaves.
How long would a moringa tree take to come to be harvestable?
Oh, geez, 3 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And the trick with moringa is you can top it, cut it off, and then it will be so robust it will sprout up and actually turn into almost a bush.
Like cannabis.
Yeah.
Similar kind of thing.
So then you're getting all of the green part of it and you just keep topping it. So here's why moringa. Because it's got 35 to 36 active antioxidants. Just that alone is stunning, right? So we all know what antioxidants are. We're getting nailed with free radicals all the time. So botanical antioxidants are really powerful for us to always consume in fresh foods. And then you have, of course, the huge amounts of vitamin E, vitamin A, vitamin C, chlorophyll, full amino acid profiles. It's incredible, right? Chelator, cleanser, gifter, protein, vitamin plethora. So you get this huge thing, but because of its fight to live, as soon as you cut it, now you've got hours. You've got hours before a lot of the constituents are oxidizing.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So if you're in India and you're like, hey, guess what? The moringa population or the moringa market is going up, and I'm an entrepreneurial Indian, I'm going to grow moringa. And then I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to eventually get it to the processor, and I'm going to cut it. And so there's a bunch of twigs in there. They don't completely pull it just for the leaf. And then it's been maybe a day, weeks before they're actually processing it and drying it and grinding it. So now you have next to nothing. You have a brown, yellow, pale green powder that is only given to you by someone being opportunistic and not caring about what it actually can do for you. And that's one of my biggest quote unquote fights is if I had infinite money, I would spend a lot of my time amassing teams to make sure and standardize the production. And that comes by relationship first. So it's a very non-linear, but it comes by way of being very linear in the processing side of it, but it comes by way of relationships, which is why I show up and I look in the eyes of the people, understand what's going on, what do they need, what are they doing, who's trustable, all of these things. So it's a very rewarding thing to show up in an area and be a minority and be humbled by that all the time and do everything you can by showing up open and I'm here and what I say I'm going to do. Because the other side of it is now in this day and age, most of them, even remote areas, have been screwed by someone of my skin color. So you have to read.
Well, the ones that screwed them weren't from Minnesota. They didn't have those Midwest values. Honestly, dude.
Yeah.
There's something to that.
Yeah.
You know,
sure. Some good people out there.
In a business that I've owned, whenever we'd interview someone and they were from the Midwest, I'm from Illinois. We're like, you're hired. I mean, honestly, just I don't know, something in the lineage there. Less shadiness prevails in that area of the country.
This is it.
What are some of the most interesting countries or regions that you've been to in your travels?
Oh man,
what places have just blown your mind? Like, wow, this is otherworldly.
Bhutan.
Where's that?
Bhutan is east of Nepal.
Oh.
And nestled in an area of the Himalayas, surrounded by 23 of the highest virgin, unclimbed, untouched mountains on the planet.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You find anything interesting there?
It was the first time I saw wild cordyceps cultivation.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Cool. Growing out of the caterpillars or whatever? Wow.
Yeah, so the Bhutan runs their country, tries everything they can to run it by gross national happiness. Yeah.
Damn, I need to move there.
Yeah. So very traditional. Their first cell phone, I think, was in 2007. Or no, 2003. I went there in 2007. 2003, and they introduced more channels, and they like wrestling, and then they instantly saw kids were more aggressive, so they shut it down. Like it's kind of the last Shangri-La. And so 300 species of wild mushrooms, the terrain. So just to give you an idea, it's a landmass the size of a little more than Indiana, with elevation changes from 2,000 feet to 25,000.
What?
Yeah.
That's madness.
Yeah. So an average kilometer in the country, you turn 17 times.
Oh my God. I would hate that. I'm feeling dizzy already.
So can you imagine that stark ecosystem amassing this there was an interesting type of goji berry that was this bright orange thing that I was like, we pulled alongside and someone was grabbing my belt and I was leaning out over this cliff, just trying to get it. And I finally pulled one and I ate it. I should have saved the seed, but I didn't. I didn't think about it. And meeting like these experts. And that's the thing, Luke. What I realized, and I started a PhD program in nutrition and I quit because there was a certain point where I was having to not travel to continue the study. And then when I realized I'm going to origin of places and going to the research centers that you can't even find on Google. I'm in the middle of India at an Ayurvedic temple that's been there for 1,000 years. And I'm in Bhutan sitting across from a guy that comes from 10 generations of medicinal mushroom expertise. I'm like going, what awesome. The hell? So I'm like, wow. So for me, I'm tactile and I love, so when I was in physiology and kinesiology and all of that stuff, when I could feel and see it and touch it, I was like, that's how it really clicks into my learning. So when I'm there and I'm looking at the plants, I'm talking to the people and we're out in the fields and we're digging things up and I'm with the researcher. I mean, I've worked with the Potato Plantation Center in Peru, which is the potato capital of the planet. It's got more tubers in Peru than any other place in the world. That's just yacon and maca are tubers, right? So they're in the potato family, or not necessarily potato, but they're tubers, right? So I worked with their researchers in the field looking at the bricks method of the quality control that they're using. And for me, that's the way I wanted to construct my life. I wanted to jump on the plane and I wanted to go to places that I wouldn't be able to get to. And I definitely can't find it on a Google search. You know, showing up in South America and learning about Sasha Inchi when the culture was forgetting about this treasure that the Incans would put this Sasha Inchi on their staves that they would, as for their kings and shit. Like this was a big deal, right? They knew it was good for topically and internally. And so when the culture was losing that in a tiny way, I was contributing to a sustained ethnobotanist adventure. And that to me, and knowing now over 15 years of doing this, knowing people for that long and knowing when I first sat down with them and had, you know, like this maca liqueur from this tiny 3.5 foot Peruvian Andean woman. And now she bought her second house and put her kids to school. And, you know, that to me, that completes an important circle because I love giving you, like you came here, I get you baruca nuts. Do you want some medicinal mushrooms? Of course, I didn't find those. You know, our friend Taro did. But the point is, when you understand that things are done right, that these nutrients are there, and that the people and the environment are preserved and done right. Now me giving that to you, I'm coming from that energy and I'm representing that power that has been at least the best that we can preserved. And that to me is, at this point in my life, I will not let that suffer for money. It just takes longer, it takes more work, and it takes a team that gets that understanding. So
that's beautiful. There's something interesting in that I want to pick out, and that's that in some cases, these indigenous peoples have had, a plant, an herb that they've held sacred. And then through their evolution, it's kind of fallen out of vogue and fallen out of popularity. It's interesting that an outsider would come in and be like, hey, you guys, you're sitting on gold here. Totally. This Sacha Inchi nut is amazing. Yo, wake up. You remember? It's kind of like waking them back up. It's really cool. It's interesting.
Well, you realize that we're in this world now where creating a sustainable engine, the economic engine, is really important, because if we can do that, we can show that model. You know what we can do? we can then go back to them and say, I will buy this from you and from your village for as long as those trees are there. And I will do that. And I will, you know what I'll also do? I will start a nursery and replant where they were lost by unsustainable practices that I understand you had to do to give your children food. So by creating a sustainable company, by people truly understand, and I know you get this, by people truly understand that by every hard-earned dollar that you give to a company, you're saying, I support that company by being in existence. And so, and you're one of those people, you'll investigate and you'll dig in and then be that voice for people. And that's really important because we need people to do that. We need people to ask those tough questions and even know what to ask. Because those average people, the naivete of middle America is, it's on a shelf. Of course it's going to be, I mean, that baby food can't be toxic. That supplement can't be full of heavy metals. If this company, that fine CEO just sent this beautiful Instagram video, of course that moringa is good. There's a couple reasons why that isn't always the case. Either they don't want to spend the money on going all the way back and sending audit teams to literally, from a quality control, science perspective, test everything. Because that's unsexy. That's not easy to market. Sending a guy and like on a flashlight, making sure rat poop isn't in the corner. That's just
damn.
Like it's like 99.
Have you seen that?
Dude.
Oh God.
Dude, if I showed you pictures of the places that you currently have ingested,
right,
you would lose your mind.
Well, here's the good news. That's disgusting. I'm going to pretend like I didn't hear that. Here's the good news, though. With shows like this, spreading the message of guys like you, and the general, and largely due to the internet, there is a higher degree of transparency in the supply chain of everything, not just superfoods now, right? And so I'm not the only discerning health nut out there that's going to... I remember a couple of years ago, I was obsessed with goat kefir, right? And I got these grains from my dad in Colorado from his Amish neighbors, and I smuggled them back, and I'm making this really great kefir. I was working on healing my gut, and I actually called the goat milk company in Central California. I said, listen, I need to know the water they're drinking. Is it from an aquifer? Is it from a well? Is it river? Is there a chance there's runoff or irrigation water? And they're just like, who is this freak? And they're like, you know what? We don't know. Let me get back to you. And they got back to me, and it turned out that it passed my test. It was well water, and the well water had been tested for heavy metals and iron and all this kind of stuff, you know? So I could rest assured, because when I'd make the kefir, when it would separate, sometimes it would curdle. And then a lot of it was water. And I was like, damn, I'm drinking all that water. What is that water before it was in that animal, you know?
Yeah.
And now, that sounds a little bit extreme, but now I know a number of people that will do things like that. They find something they like, and the companies are sort of beholden now to be more forthright and oftentimes even using in their marketing. It's tested for mold, tested for heavy metals, all the whole thing. So now it's getting to the point where if you don't see that kind of rigorous testing, you're sort of like, oh, then why aren't they using that in their marketing? They'd be having that like front and center because the public is becoming more discerning and knowledgeable.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that run into it in terms of big companies. It's liabilities because it's tough to throw all the information out there. Because any sort of anything could come in, especially when you have multi-formulated ingredients. Your test, even if you have all the protocols in place and everything else. And so it's vulnerable. And it's easy for smaller companies to completely be transparent. It's not that people don't want to be transparent. It's just, we're in such a legal challenge that it makes it difficult. And I make this argument too, and I'm switching gears a little bit, but it's kind of like, I found this early on when I'd go to a place, I'd meet with the farmer, and be like, wow, you're growing it in a wild kind of recreated harvest permacultural kind of way. This is beautiful. There's no pesticides. There's no organic certification because it's like 10 steps beyond. But then all of a sudden you're like this pressure of like, okay, well, what's going to take to get this wild collected thing organically certified? Largely, that burden is going to be pushed onto the farmer. And now that farmer that he has to come up with fees, he's got to go through regulatory processes, even though he's already through them in some respects.
Right.
And now that commodity the price has gone up, but the quality hasn't changed at all. And that does exist.
So that's the downside of
Right.
the regulatory certifications and things like that. I've noticed this at the farmers markets. I'll go to the farmers market in Ojai or Santa Barbara, wherever, and I'm always looking for the big organic symbol.
Yeah.
And then I'll see the little guy over here with like a crappier sign, and it says no pesticide.
Yeah.
I'll go ask the guy. I'm like, "Is it organic?" He goes, "No, I can't say that because I don't have the money like the big dogs to get the certification." I said, "Do you use any pesticides?" "No, I swear to God, we don't. It's all natural."
Right.
I go, "Okay."
Right.
It's one of those things, like
So
you said,
there
you can look them in the eye. You tend to get to vibe this out.
Yeah.
But that's interesting. It's sort of
But
the downside of being able to verify everything that you're doing.
And if you have
that costs money.
Exactly. If you have a company that is willing to put that effort into it, you don't need the organic certification. You just have your standards and make sure that those standards are adhered to and tested. So at the end of the day, dude, organic certification is a white piece of paper being passed around too, bro.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah, I bet.
There's a lot of places where that thing that came from way over there on that ship and on that train and on that thing can easily you know what, if we just move this over here, stamp organic on, we'll be able to charge 30% more. So there's pressure there, and economy is pressure. So, again, I will say to any company, treat your customers as if they know, even if they don't. Create it in a way that is right from the beginning, and test everything and set up the foundation. Go there, show up, get to know the people. Don't cut corners, because that inevitably will come back and bite you. And I love the fact that people are asking for more transparency and stuff. It's of course, because we know we're being duped. When Monsanto finally is being...
Can you believe it took that long?
Yeah.
Dude.
I mean, it's just so much in the court's face that this poor kind of custodial guy was spraying glyphosate all over thing, got cancer from it. And so the court had to rule in his favor. And it's like, well, that shit's been going on forever.
You know what I noticed about that, though, which was, it felt like a big victory for those of us that are on the other side of that paradigm. In reality, it's a very small victory, because of the mass worldwide scale of a poison like glyphosate being in everything. But I have noticed now it's popping up in other things. Oh, we just discovered it's in cereal that kids are eating. Now the news, because it's clickbaity, they're able to use the fear tactic against glyphosate and Monsanto, which it's cool. I mean, I don't really pay attention much to the mainstream media because there's so much fear mongering. But when it's fear mongering towards something that people should be legitimately afraid of, so I've noticed there's some repercussions of that recent court case. Now it's like, oh, it's in this and it's in this. I'm like, yeah, it's everywhere, that shit.
And to your point, they didn't want the one to happen because of that cascade effect.
Yeah,
because that's they want to do everything they can to stop that snowball from continuing. And hopefully as a society that we continue to poke it and push it every place, that because then middle America go, well, if the court decided, then maybe I should consider this.
What bothers me about those types of companies and the things they put out is the lack of transparency, and even further being deceptive with intent, right? It's like, if I want to go eat at McDonald's or drink a Diet Coke or something, which I'm not going to do, I have a choice. I know it's not good for me, right? But when something's getting, like glyphosate is getting into our food supply, and I go get some organic wheat bread, right? Unknowingly, I'm ingesting something that's just part of our food system now, and it's being hidden and being lied about. That's just the punk rock teenager in me. It's just like, kill them. Kill them who kill. I guess that doesn't make sense. I'm hypocritical there, but you get where I'm going. Like, that's the shit that pisses me off. I'm like, yes, expose it.
Well, we should know about it.
It's the things then you can make an educated guess. So if I want to go stop at, Dunkin' Donuts, I know I'm having a glyphosate wheat donut, and I'm going to roll with that and enjoy it and think positively and imagine that it's made of wheatgrass juice or something,
As my DNA is unwinding the wrong way.
Yeah, totally. We'll be right back at you after this brief but important announcement. This episode of the Lifestylist Podcast is brought to you by my friends over at Joovv. So for the past year or so, I've been doing something called photobiomodulation. That's a super geeky term for using red light therapy. And Joovv make a device that is hanging right here next to me in my podcast studio that I use just about every damn day. In fact, most days I use it twice a day. So why would you want to use red light therapy? Well, just like a whole food can be broken down into different vitamins and minerals, sunlight can also be broken down into different colors. And just like the nutrients in whole food, each color in sunlight has its own effect on our bodies. So once absorbed into your body, light energy is converted into cellular energy, which kicks off a series of metabolic events like the formation of new capillaries, elevated production of collagen, and the release of ATP. And red light therapy has even been approved by the FDA, and its effectiveness has been studied throughout the world. So here's why I use the Joovv red light therapy device on the reg. Repairs sun damage, which I get a lot of, reduces wrinkles, which I'm getting a few of, enhances muscle recovery and peak performance. When I work out, I have that issue, heals acne and other blemishes, fades scars and stretch marks, speeds wound healing, reduces joint inflammation, and my favorite benefit of the Joovv, increases testosterone production. So if you're interested in checking out some of those benefits for yourself, you can go over to joovv.com/Luke. That's JOOVV.com/Luke. Here's the catch. If you use the code Luke at checkout, you will receive a special free gift. So go to joovv.com/Luke, use the code Luke, and get hooked up with some Joovv red light therapy. And now back to the interview. Other than that country near Nepal, what was that one called?
Bhutan.
Other than Bhutan, give me one or two other top crazy countries that you've experienced.
Well, certainly in certain areas of countries, right?
Okay.
So Brazil, I was blown away with the Cerrado, the savanna of Brazil, because where the baru or the baruzeta tree or the baruca nuts come from is the largest landmass of crystals from naturally on the ground of any other place in the world. So here we are hunting down baruzeta trees, and in these shops and in these little places, these guys who are crystal hunters are everywhere. So you're like in this vibe, and these natural springs are everywhere, and you're like, I'm going to live here. Like, I still want to get a place because it's so hard to get there, but then all of a sudden you show up and it's like Joshua Tree on steroids.
Wow. So this is south of the equator then?
Yeah. So it's
in Brazil.
It's south. Yes. And it's south of the Amazon. So it's like and it's the landmass of 3 states of Texas. It's huge.
That's crazy because Brazil's like roughly the size of the United States, right? So if you imagine how much of the United States Texas takes up and replicate that times 3.
It's at least third to
that's crazy.
Third of the United States. So
that's crazy.
So
and there's springs there popping up?
Oh, they're everywhere. And then there's a place called Alto Paradiso where we have a lot of our centralized locations and partners and stuff. And it's called High Paradise.
Wow.
And it is, I mean, you would go there.
Are there any hot springs down there? Or just, you're talking about just drinking springs?
There have to be. There has to be. run into any, but
you had me at underground crystal caves.
Dude,
just imagine what's percolating under the land there.
Yeah, it's so special. And of course, you know, going to Iquitos and the Pucallpa River and the Amazon, and those things, and having boats break down and ending up in the Shipibo people's village, being brought in by. The funny thing is, our boat broke down. We were able to get to this place, but we couldn't leave it because it was too dark. And then the illegal loggers would come in, and they're pirates, so they'd kill you if you're on. So then we had to stay. So as soon as we pulled up to this village off the river, they started playing this music, and these girls in this traditional clothes came and pulled us off the boat. And we started skipping our way into the village, and come to find out they're all the virgins of the village. So they take all the guys. I'm not even making this up. I have it on video. And they brought us into the village, and next thing you know, we're running into the forest, cutting vines, drinking chuchuwasi tea, or unidagato tea, cat's claw, and we're looking at their traditional ayahuasca vine and root, and then they have one mosquito net that some foreigner left like 10 years ago. Thank God, because the mosquitoes are just out of control. And so we laid on a plank of wood. And so anyway, it was beautiful, because the point is, like, you can go to Peru and go to things, but when you're in it, the rawness of it, and really the Sahara was the same. I think the addictive aspect of the travel for me is I kind of avoid all the other stuff, and I go into it. So the benefit of the superfood side of it is digging deep into that stuff and really feeling, what's really going on and what's really happening. So in a lot of respects, the places seem to be secondary than the actual experience and the people.
Right.
Because that's the memorable stuff. Of course, you have unique places, everything from, deep in Costa Rica, and one memorable one was actually running up in the sovereign mountains. Technically, it's China, but in the sovereign mountains of peaceful mountains of Tibet in China, we were hunting down rhodiola. Rhodiola is fantastic, one of the great adaptogens, and great for...
What is that? Is it a root or something?
Root.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of species, right? So we were at 14,000 feet. And by the end, we were at 17 plus. But then everybody but me and the Tibetan guy made it to the last little top where the special rhodiola was. And that really was because of the breathing work and the early days of the Wim Hof and all of that stuff. I tell you what, because I've been in the Andes at 15,000 plus, and I was like, okay, I'm chewing on coca leaf tea to help with the stuff. And it's like, yeah, but I have a headache. And I've always done pretty well with elevation. But so the memorable side of it is snowing, it's raining, and I'm trying to keep up with this Tibetan guy. And I'm just looking out, the snow-capped mountain in the background, and then a storm coming in. And I'm like, oh my God. And we get to that place, and some guy's taking a picture, and they're this big, and like they're half an inch tall. And I'm looking down at them, and I'm looking at this rhodiola plant, and I'm like, that's incredible. Because the journey, I always think of that, the journey of these plants, which is why the quality control, which is why it's important to preserve these bloody things, because that strength of that rhodiola, that adaptogenic quality that it has, those constituents that have tons of antidepressant activity and ability for your body to deal with all kinds of stress and altitude stress and bronchial stress, that to me is worth it every time, even though it's a pain in the ass to get there. But that moment is just, it's just the best, you know? So
well, as a superfood hunter, I mean, that's, hunting is implying that something's being killed at the end of the journey. That's the payoff for you.
Right. Yeah,
I mean, it's like my dad is not anymore. He's a bit older, but he's a lifelong hunter in Colorado. And I mean, he would put himself in these arduous situations. I mean, oh man, he'd wear at a certain point in his hunting career, he had to just stop using horses because they weren't rugged enough, and he had to switch to mules because he was too hardcore. But it was all about feeding himself for the next year, and so that's what made it worth it. There was a payoff there. For me, I'm not that hardcore. For me, the payoff is finding water. When I go on an adventure and I'm like at the end, as long as there's a hot spring, a river, some body of water that I can get in and cleanse myself with natural waters, that's my reward that I'm finding now, which makes it tough to do that in California because there's not a lot of water around in many cases. So have you ever found yourself in a situation where you felt like you were about to die, where your life's flashing before your eyes because the Jeep flipped over or the boat sinking or the natives are restless or anything like that?
Not that it didn't get to the point where I was going to die, but there's certain points where I was like, I might get thrown in jail in a weird country. Unfortunately, I've had people get hurt, seriously hurt. And I think the radar for me, you can't go about traveling in this way with the same mentality of traveling. So luckily, other than, weird stitches in hospitals and stuff like that, I've had people, I won't say his last name, but this George, he was with me and he was a camera guy in Indonesia. And we were looking at this pristine artisan cacao and we really wanted to go. And so the only way you could get there is these very small cobblestone roads. And I'm comfortable on a motorcycle. I've ridden them all my life. And so we all kind of get on these little scooters. And so this director of photography says, he's got his camera on the back. He says, I'm going to go. And I kind of saw him on the bike. I'm like, yeah, you maybe should just jump on the back. And he goes, nope. He's in New Yorker. And he's like, I'm here. I'm going to experience it all. So we take off and we make it to the first place. We meet these families. We see how they're processing everything. We see the beautiful cacao. We break some open. We eat some raw. We, see how they traditionally work with it. And we're like, okay, it's getting dark. We got to get to this other one. Let's go back. So I cruise ahead. I'm having fun. I'm on the bike and I stop and I let everyone catch up and I'm cruising. Next thing I know, no one comes. So I'm like, uh-oh. I turn around. I come to the scene of George laying on the ground. His motorcycle is like off in the ditch. And we look, and he's kind of squirming and screaming. I look down, his leg snapped in half.
Oh.
So it's lower, just below his knee. And apparently it happened because I wasn't there, but it was something like his foot slipped off the peg, went into the front spoke, and then his body went over so left his foot there and snapped it. So now we're in the middle, we're in Jakarta. We're in the middle of nowhere. And we don't even think we can get a vehicle back there. So we're now, what the fuck are we going to do? And we're like, is he internally bleeding? Is he going to have a blood clot? It's like, who knows what's happening? So we try to call out and try to get a helicopter and nothing's working. And we finally get some big ass vehicle back, and we two of us cruised ahead to find the hospital. Some shitty hospital of a nightmare scenario. It's like you talk about a horror movie. This is not the hospital you want to be in the middle of nowhere in Jakarta. You don't want to be there. It's not clean. It's not safe. But we had to go there, and we got there, and we got him in this vehicle, and he made it, and he's screaming the whole time, and he's yellow, and he's just freaking in shock. And they had some opiates, so they stuck him with opiates. Got him at least feeling a little better. And then the background, the first, what's his name? Not the last one, the other one, Prince, not Diana, but his son. What the hell is his name?
I don't remember.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's going on in the background. They're getting, so whatever year that was, I forget. So that's going on in the background. I'm hearing it. Someone's watching that in the freaking weird hospital. So I have this weird background music. And so we get them loaded up. Anyway, we make it to Bali, a better hospital, told him not to use bamboo screws, got him, and he had to have surgery because he couldn't get on a plane. He would have had a blood clot and died. So they reconstructed his leg and put plates and screws and rods and shit in, and he had to stay there for a few months. And then another person on the Amazon River got hit by a limb coming out of the water and broke her jaw, and that was on the same boat. Like, she wasn't paying attention, so I ducked, and it clotheslined her in the boat.
Oh, dude.
And so the thing is, like, you have to definitely be aware, right? And I've had a few little injuries and stuff, but luckily no. And the moments where I'm like, I'm going to get thrown in jail right now. Like,
because of shady politics of the whole thing and all that?
Having to pay people off. And I'm like, okay, well, that's what they're asking me in some weird way. So now I'm going to perform a bribe. I'm going to pay them so they don't kick me out or put me in jail. So I did. And then they leave, and I'm like, they might be, now just by me doing that, they might put me in jail. So like shit like that has happened several times. And
you mentioned chewing on coca leaves.
Yeah.
Have you experimented with any of the psychoactive plant medicines from around the world? Kratom,
ayahuasca,
coca leaves,
ayahuasca, and first time in 1998, I think.
Wow, early adopter.
Yeah.
Before you could just go to Joshua Tree and hang out with, with a bunch of millennials doing a ceremony. No offense, millennials doing the ayahuasca ceremonies. I'm just busting balls.
Yeah.
But you were doing it back in the day. I mean, I never even heard of it. Back then.
I didn't either, and someone mentioned it, and I knew I was going to do it. Like, I didn't even do any drug in my life at that point. And so I did, and the plant told me, basically, for lack of a better way of saying it, thanks for coming. Good to have you here. I'm going to show you some things, but you never have to take me again.
Wow.
Because I'm always here. When I'm saying you're always here. It's here. You don't have to do it. And so I did that ceremony, but I also didn't listen to that. So I did it a few more times and got the crap beat out of me, which is much bigger conversation. And it's a little too intense for this.
Yeah.
But so I have a lot of respect, a lot of honor, a lot of caution to people that are on the fence. Like, it's either calling you or it's not calling you.
Oh, yeah. I've never had an inkling at all. People try to talk me into it all the time. Bro, you don't know what you're missing. Don't be afraid. I'm like, I'm not, dude. I used to do a lot of drugs that were way worse than that, way more dangerous. It's not afraid. It's like if you said, hey, you want a piece of chocolate cake? I just don't feel like it. There's no reason why. It's just, doesn't have any appeal to me at this point. One thing I did start using recently, as not really because of its psychoactive effects, but just for it's a good painkiller, is this kratom from Thailand. Do you know anything about that or have any experience?
No.
There are these trees that grow in Southeast Asia and a few countries, and they use it to get people off opiates. It's weird. It's illegal in Thailand, and the story goes that it was made illegal by the government because they actually wanted the field workers out in the poppy fields to stay addicted to opium. And you can use it to get off opiates because it hits the opiate receptors,
sure, but
it lacks the molecule that allows you to become addicted to it. It's really strange, but it's a great painkiller. And if you only take, like 2 grams, a teaspoon or something, there's no psychoactive effect, but it is like relaxing to the nervous system of your body. It's pretty cool.
Well, we need that.
It's cool. It's cool. And they a lot of people, and there's a lot of controversy around it, but a lot of people are using it to get off of this fentanyl and all this crazy, really dangerous opiates that we have going on here. And then what's it like to chew coca leaves, the plant that cocaine products are derived from?
Yeah.
You get high off that at all, or what does it do?
No, it's an incredible medicinal plant. It's got a mild stimulant, bronchodilation, mild euphoria, but it's not at all high. The concentration of that is, I forget the actual ratio, but it's it's a few kilos of dry matter per, 1 gram or whatever, not even. So it's unfortunate because it's a really powerful. It's similar to like that compared to like if I take green tea. It's similar to that, except that it has from the high altitude standpoint, it really helps curb any nausea and allows for the circulatory system to kind of kick in a little more and transport red blood cells. And so when you're at elevation, the first, when we're going to the Andes, it's always like, okay, we're maybe in the Berlin market, and we're in the, there's places where you can get that and get a bag of it and throw it in the car and just grab a little bit of it and chew on it. And some people put like lemon or whatever, it kind of acts as in a little extractor and allows more. But I don't like that aspect. I like the kind of the nutty, chewy, leaf. So I basically keep that in my mouth.
Does it numb your mouth?
A little bit.
Little bit. Does it make you solve the world's problems?
No, it's not. No. Certainly.
Something about cocaine, man, it makes you think you're so smart. I remember that when I was a teenager, I'd be doing blow and I'd come up with these theories on this and that. And then, or even playing music, you think you write the best song and the next day listen back and go, oh my God, it was horrible. Right. But it gives you these false superhuman feelings. What about Iboga? Did you come across that in your journeys?
No, anywhere? I've never played with it, never used it.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah,
just curious. In terms of you spending time with these indigenous peoples around the world, what are some philosophical gems that you've gained from interacting with people that live closer to the land, et cetera?
The ones that haven't been seduced by the need to be westernized, because you do find that. You find the middle of nowhere. They want to be da-da-da-da. They want like an American.
You want Levi's and an iPhone?
Yeah. There's a seduction of, and also a collapse of farming rural people. And they have to, because they're on sustainability, they end up working in the city, and then part of their family is out in the middle of nowhere. So you have that. I think, the first things that come to mind is the community, the connectedness of family is the most obvious thing you have, and completely dictated by nature. That's probably the easiest and the greatest thing. And that is something that certainly echoes the research around centurions and blue zones and everything else. And even Harvard study, longest running study that we know of, 75 plus years. And they're saying that, in terms of longevity and quality of life, it's community. So that's the obvious, because you end up having to have a circle of people. You're having a discussion with all these people just to move something along, or say, hey, can I do this thing? So it's that, I don't know if it's one philosophical sentence other than kind of the peace, the community, the down-regulated, amped up world that we're always in is so beautiful to be able to go, I can hang out here, and the siesta in the afternoon, they work really hard before it gets hot, and then hang out with their family and play. And so that flow exists more than it exists, I think, than we know, so, and I think the traditions, the commitment to traditions is really something that's really cool. Like, the ritual that people go through, the way they perform, create a tonic, the blessings they give a person before they give it to them, the reverence that they have for the plants, the respect they have of picking the plant, the care and the respect that they know that the people around them have given them, that their ability to own that space and to completely be of service, it's just awe-inspiring, from the shaman to the elder of the village to the, I've looked at some of these guys in the face, and you're just like, there is so much going on. It's unbelievable. Like, I could sit here I think the biggest thing there's nothing I would do over, but if I could live a parallel life, every shaman or elder that I met, I would live with them for 10 years to really absorb everything that they have. And and then that's where I have so much respect for some colleagues of mine, like, and I say colleagues, I use that lightly because this is like legendary. Like, so Dr. Michael Ballack, who's one of the greatest ethnobotanist legends of our time, living legends today, who has sat in front of 40, 50 people, shamans, and giving and entrusting him with plant medicines and healing protocols, that those people are all now dead and would have been lost. And so when you get a glimpse of them saying, yes, I'm going to work with you, that is a huge kind of incredible opportunity and honor. So that kind of way, and it's hard for me when I talk about, where things are from and how they're good for you. And I hope that some people can feel the lineage of a tiny bit of that. When, the holding the rhodiola and looking at the Tibetan guy and can't speak to him, but we were just laughing and going, I'm going to help. I'm going to get this out. And looking at the Cambodian shaman showing us how to work with these plants and heal these people that are coming to him, like, and wanting to teach us. Like, that's a freaking incredible thing. And that goes on to this day. And we lose stuff every day. We lose culture. We lose healing potentials. And we don't ever get to know some of these healing opportunities. So I think that's
awesome.
If I could participate more in that, like Dr. Ballack and I are flirting with the idea of helping with some of his stuff, that would be fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
As we come to a close here, I want to touch on your most recent discovery because, and I don't just say stuff like this to blow people up, but these baru nuts.
Yeah.
Baru nuts from that, what is it called? The Sahadu?
Sahadu. Yeah.
Sahadu, this arid place in Brazil that we were discussing earlier. What the hell is up with these freaking nuts? I'm going to just tell you subjectively, you guys listening. So I don't eat peanuts. Legumes don't really agree with me. There's issues with mold, mycotoxins with peanuts. They're just not a food that I love them, but it's just not a food that my body likes. My taste buds do. And so when I ran into you with these, your barukas, and you said, yeah, they kind of taste like peanuts, but they're an actual nut and they have this great nutritional profile and stuff. Dude, from the first handful I had, swear to God, I was instantly addicted to these. And every time I get a bag of them from you guys, I go through them in like 3 or 4 days, and it's probably supposed to be a 2-week supply or more. They are just so freaking good. And I digest them very easily. If I'm to eat almonds or something, I have to soak them. It's a whole process to get the phytic acid off. And nuts they don't agree with me that well. I ate a lot when I was a vegetarian, or I lived on nuts, and I think I kind of tore up my gut from, not knowing how to properly prepare nuts and stuff. So we probably got about 10 minutes or so left, so it's not a lot of time, but how did you discover these? Give us a little bit of background on their whole trip.
Yeah, so I was in Brazil for another reason. I was looking at some palm fruits, acai, and some other ones that we're trying to get out now, but I had come back. Here's the power of social media. And so, people know a little bit about God, this kid's everywhere, right? So I was just in Brazil, and this Brazilian reached out to me, and he was like, do you know of this baru nut? I'm like, no, which is such a great thing to say. And then he goes, can I tell you about it? He sent me some info, started doing the research, and I was like, immediately like, what? It's a nut? And technically a seed, right? So it's like, as for all the viewers out there, we have full baru fruit. So there's one nut per.
It's crazy. So we're looking at like maybe twice as big as a walnut, or like a large egg yolk, maybe in size. And so inside one of these is one of the baru nuts that, for those of you listening, is maybe twice as big as a peanut.
Yeah, it's about 1 gram.
Okay.
And this is about 25 grams.
Wow.
On the outside of this is fruit, a fruit layer, very special fruit layer, which we can get into in a second. So when he reached out, I started doing the nutritional stuff, and then he sent me some. And as you know, when you taste them, you're like...
It's instant, dude.
You're like, this tastes like something that I'm already recognizing.
Yeah.
So now I'm seeing nutritional data, empirical stuff that other people have done. So I'm like, okay. And then I'm tasting these things, and I'm like, whoa. And I'm like, what do you guys wanting to do? Well, we can import this from Brazil, and what do you think? Do you think think there's a shot or whatever? If anyone's going to know or want to do it, it's you. And so I met with them. One of them was living in San Diego. So he cruised up, and I said, well, we can't create a deal because I have to go see. Because there's no way, I'm not going to do anything until I go see.
You have to get the story behind it.
I have to see if this is even viable.
Yeah.
Like there's no fields of this that people are planting. It doesn't exist.
So this is a wild food?
Wild collected.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. How much exists that you can actually have?
Yeah.
Well, when you have the landmass the size of 3 states of Texas, but you also have forest devastation in a way that is faster than anything almost we've seen in a biome. So 50 to 70% of it has been destroyed in only 40 years. It's being destroyed aggressively with cattle grazing and then food for cattle, corn, soy, things like that. And it's sad. I've driven through it. You're like, that's thrashed. And that's a beautiful biome. And it's like a line that was just created. So anyway, flew down there, started looking around, started meeting all the players. Like I said, here we go now. I'm meeting everyone. I'm having the interviews. I'm meeting guys that have been in it from the beginning, the processors, the indigenous people that were driving thousands and thousands of kilometers, right? Trying to do everything possible to get as many angles as possible. And I come back on, well, I don't know how many trees exist. And you can't plant trees because you won't know that they will produce or until for 15 years. So how many trees exist and is there a population? So we're getting kind of hit and miss information. People are making stuff up. We've talked to guys doing their thesis in Brazil on the Barozeda tree. So, okay, do you know how many? Well, I think it's this much. And this guy says that much. And so we came back and I was like, I'm going to help. I don't know how much I can get it fully engaged, but the more I did and the more I saw people enjoying it, and the more I started learning, the more tests we were doing to validate everything, I was like, there's no way I can turn this away. It tastes too good. The nutrient profile is ridiculous, right? So you're getting all the amino acids. How do you get that in a freaking nut or
rare?
seed? Yeah. It doesn't exist. Like maybe one other one, I think maybe it's a cashew. It's close. You have a third less fat calories than it. So the nutrient density of the caloric amount that you're taking in is even greater. You have 374% using your little almond as the jump off point. You have 374% more antioxidants than an almond. So you're getting this massive antioxidant uptick. Magnesium, which is something we all lack. Iron is something, there's 2 two biggest micronutrients that most people lack is iron and magnesium. So that has a huge amount. One serving is a third of your daily requirements of magnesium. And then you also have now this fiber. So you have a third more, three times more fiber than any other nut. So you're like, what the hell? So it's promoting the good, healthy biome while giving this micronutrient-rich antioxidant, high fiber, high protein, complete protein, while it's directly supporting tens of thousands of families that have to go and collect it. You can't pick it. It has to fall.
Wow.
It has to fall.
Crazy.
Because it is producing that deeply rich, mana-rich nut. And it's only complete when it falls.
When these fall, I'm have the whole fruit back in my hand. When these fall, are they a soft fruit at any point? No. And
like
so you have to use some kind of hydraulic press or something to get this out of here?
So it's a good thing that you brought that up. So,
I mean, because you look at one of these and you're like, I'm not getting anything out of that unless I have a massive sledgehammer.
I have a sledgehammer, I have a rock, I have a machete. That's how they've done it. Or thousands of years ago, you know what they did? They took a handful of them, and at night, when the fire was going down, they took a whole bunch, threw it on the fire, and in the morning, they were roasted inside, gotten rid of all the anti-nutrients, and then crack it wide open. That's how they consumed it. And that's not on a Google search. That's when you find out and you're talking to guys that have studied it and all that stuff. And that's a beautiful thing. Again, like I couldn't have found that out by studying, right? So that was a big thing that traditionally now they're cracking them with the machetes, carpal tunnels, and like it's horrible. So now it's been about 3 years. We've spent a lot of time, money, and resources and infrastructure and collecting systems. And we've purchased and became partners with one of the facilities down there and upgraded the whole thing and brought in HACCP protocols and then invested in engineers around the world to develop the only technology that could crack these open, because other nut technology doesn't work. The shapes are different. It's way too difficult. And then also the late discovery was when I saw, and this is a funny thing that I was going to tell you before we were filming, when I saw the fruit, that when a guy had this and had it in storage for over 5 years, and it was no different than the one that I just picked up, you know what happened in my head? What is going on in a fruit layer that is not breaking down in 5 years?
That's crazy, dude. So
then I'm like, well, it has to be rich.
Fruit that trees make, to me, is basically it's bacteria food. Yeah. I mean, any fruit that falls to the ground within 24, 48 hours
is going to start if those are on the ground and rain, it's going to eventually break down, and then a tree may or may not grow, right? So, but when you have one in storage and it's sitting there exposed to the elements, and maybe in a bag or a sack in the warehouse, so then that goes, okay, well, there has to be antioxidants. There has to be vitamin C, vitamin E, antioxidants. There's got to be a lot of fiber, because that stuff is amazing in there. And I tasted it. I'm like, okay, that's really good and sweet, but there's tannins in it. So we tested it all, and no one's doing it. So in a car on the way home, I'm like, there has to be something. So I started shaving these with a knife and getting a bunch of it. So the second trip to Brazil, I ended up coming back with this shaved fruit, and then we got it tested. And then that's now, whenever this is launched, the Kickstarter that we had, that is the launch of our perfect alchemy of the fruit from the outside, which is shaved, boiled, shaved, and dried, added back to the nut. And now you have exponentially more micronutrients, exponentially more antioxidants with this little touch.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
So now we're aggressively finding the machinery to crack it and speed up the process. And we're just now ratcheting it up with a consumer that just completely falls in love with it. And that's why I'm so into it. And I wanted to make sure that we covered that. I mean, obviously it's your latest venture and you want to cover it too, but it's like, I'm not sure if I have these on my site in the food section, but if I don't, I will
soon, and people can find them there, or on your site. You can buy them direct, right?
Yeah. So barukas.com or on Amazon, and then you'll have whatever promo code you have.
Cool. Yeah. They're just, you guys, honestly, if you have to try them, it's insane. Especially plant-based people, man. Because like I said, when I was a vegetarian, it's like, okay, I'm pretty much sick of almonds, and every almond cheese and almond milk and whatever. This is like, and for people that have peanut allergies or that just like me, it just doesn't agree with you, this is like the best roasted. When you get the one good peanut that's roasted just perfectly, it just has that perfect smoky profile. That's how every one in every bag. And there's no bunk ones either. If you eat peanuts, sometimes you get a really rancid one. These are all uniformly the same and delicious. So I'm stoked for you, dude.
Well, we put a lot of time in uniforming and upgrading.
Yeah, and the roasting too is just like perfect. The taste is amazing. So
thank you.
Yeah,
for that.
So congratulations on finding a cool discovery.
Yeah,
because there's every few years some, like when I first saw the Sacha Inchi nuts. This is just a few years ago. I started seeing that, and I think the same guy still sells them. They're in this clear jar, like a big mason jar. And I got those. I was like, these are different. This is unique. And it just seemed to have come out of nowhere. Meanwhile, across the globe, there's somewhere where indigenous people have been eating this since the beginning of time. So it's cool that this is kind of like your crown jewel of the moment.
It's beautiful.
So, dude, you've taught me a lot today. You've taught the audience a lot. Who have been 3 teachers in your life that you'd like to share with us that we might be able to go learn from?
Oh, man. Well, I'd say Dr. Michael Ballack, the guy that I brought, a great ethnobotanist. This guy, he's dead now, unfortunately, from Boulder, Colorado. Dr. Anderson was one of the first. He was the guy that was running to the medical journal, medical library, and giving me information, and really kind of sparked something that I didn't even know I had, the desire to do this. And you know what I have to say, recently I was able to sit down and talk to and hang out with Dr. Dean Ornish.
Oh, cool.
So doing a lot of research and a lot of peer-reviewed stuff. And so we hung out for a bit. And so it was fun to hit. And actually I'll throw in Dr. Walter Longo. So him and I have been chatting. He's one of the top longevity scientists. You should get him on the podcast. He's a great guy, Italian guy, and really bright. So yeah, there's a few, but there's a lot. There's a long list, man, and really all the shamans and the teachers and the indigenous people that have, opened their hearts to me and allowed me to do a few of these things.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing all that. And where can people find your websites and social media and anything like that?
Yeah, so currently superlife.com. We're going to be redoing it the first of the year with some other surprises. I got some really big projects happening in the next year. Some stem cell stuff that I've been working on for 3 years.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Oh, yeah. We'll come back.
Cool. Okay.
That's going to be a really fun discussion.
Good.
That's going to be some bomb dropping on that one.
Nice.
And Super Life Living on all social media platforms. So, yeah, I'm poking around a little bit, but I'm focused on some projects right now. So,
yeah.
So I haven't been aggressively staying on the social media.
Well,
stuff.
we'll come back when the next iteration or the next discovery comes out.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thanks, brother.
Man.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
All right, you guys, we did it. We made it through another episode of the Lifestylist Podcast. As requested earlier in the intro, if you'd like to share this with a friend, I would highly appreciate it. Help me hit that goal of 2 million downloads by the end of 2018. Got a couple months to do so. We're only a couple 100,000 downloads to go. And with your help, you will definitely allow me to reach that goal. It's not really for any reason other than just personal accomplishment and feeling like I did 2 million in 2 years. So we're getting there. Some podcasts, as I said, do 2 million in 2 months. I mean, that's the upper 0.001 percentile of the most popular podcasts in the world, probably. But that's where I want to be. So you can help me get there. Also, a reminder, you probably wanted to check out these baruka nuts that we talked about in the episode. You can do so by going to barukas.com/Luke. That's spelled BARUKAS, barukas.com/Luke. If you enter the code Luke at checkout, you'll save 15% off. And I highly recommend that you try these things out. They are so freaking delicious. It's insane. In fact, I can't even keep them in the house because I just plow through them. And I don't know, it gets expensive. All right. I'd also like to thank our official sponsors this week, Tonic Wellness Boutique. You can go to tonicwellnessboutique.com to learn all about the services that they offer. They're right here in the middle of LA. If you're traveling to LA, you definitely want to get into Tonic Wellness, do their infrared saunas, do their spot cryo, do their cryo skin. If you want to, get rid of a little unwanted fat here and there, you can do their full body cryo. It's a really great place for beauty, biohacking, and rejuvenation. Tonic Wellness Boutique. That's tonicboutique.com. And then our old buddies at Four Sigmatic. I mean, come on, like on the daily, we're all taking that stuff by now, right? If you haven't heard, here's the word. Go to foursigmatic.com/Luke Story. If you enter the code Luke Story, they're going to give you 15% off your order. You get some medicinal mushrooms, some herbs, all kinds of good stuff over there. And then Juve. I spent the weekend with my Juve device over at Mercado Sagrado, blasting people with some red light therapy. And if you go to juve.com/Luke and enter the code Luke at checkout, you're going to get a special surprise free gift. So that's JOOVV.com/Luke. Juve.com/Luke. The code is Luke to get yourself some red light therapy. Next week's episode, whoa, I didn't even realize that until I'm reading my notes here. Next week's episode is the biohacking superpower of red light therapy with the guys from Juve. There you go. Number 169 coming up next Tuesday. And I try to explain photobiomodulation to people, and it's pretty geeky stuff, but it's had a huge impact on my life. I do it every day. Literally this morning, I got up, I stood in front of my Juve for 10 minutes. I set the timer, and that helped me get powered up to go with the rest of my day. So that's next week. And then we've got events coming up. Whitma Live, New York City, October 25th. Rama, New York City, a special workshop I'm presenting there on October 27th. And then back in LA for the Neil Strauss Biohacking Intensive, December 14th and 16th. 14th through 16th. That's what that little dash means. And you can find my events at lukestory.com/events. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day, evening, wherever you are in the world, whatever time it is. Do your damn thing. Be free. Live the life that you deserve. And I'll see you next week on the Lifestylist Podcast. This episode of the Lifestylist Podcast was produced by podcastmasters.net.